Hi there YouTube, Extreme Trains here. So in this video we're taking a look at one of the push-along items which has been requested many times, and I assure you I'm trying to find all the push-along metal engine items that all engines go that I can, but as I've talked about in many previous videos and also posts on the community tab, they are very difficult to find in Australia, particularly the more recent waves. But that said, finally, from the glories of Amazon, I have managed to pick up this, which is the push-along Edward. You know, Edward is a bit of a controversial character in that he has appeared extremely rarely, as far as I understand it, in the All Engines Go show. So what are you waiting for? Let's take a look at this model. So here is Edward in his lovely packaging. As you can see, it is that newer style with the medal collection. I believe this shipped from Amazon Germany, so I don't know whether that makes any difference to the packaging. It appears not to, and it also explains why we have all these different languages on it. As I've talked about in previous videos, I think this is extremely unfortunate, and it really doesn't help sell this product because no one has any information about what it actually is. But otherwise, the packaging is broadly the same as what we've seen before, so let's crack Edward open and take a look. I'm going to do the spin now. Taking a look around at Steady Eddie, as he was perhaps infamously known in some of the hit era of the show. Alright, firstly on Edward's face, this is a pretty good Edward face as compared to how he appears in the All Engines Go show. I was just looking at some reference photos to refresh my memory before filming this video, because I haven't, as I think I've talked about in other videos, I just haven't watched much of All Engines Go, not necessarily because I don't like it, but also because it's quite difficult for me to find the full-length episodes, and so therefore I haven't watched that many of them. But you can see here, yeah, I think that's a fine Edward face. Again, disappointing that we've continued the trend of not painting the buffers on the tender engines. I talked about that a lot in my previous videos, and also in the Steam Team engines pack, which would kind of reverse that trend a little bit. But yeah, we've reverted back to the usual in terms of how Edward is designed in that regard. Otherwise, if we take a look at the side, we can see we do have a custom wheel arrangement for Edward. He's got the, interestingly enough, he's got the same wheel arrangement that he had in the previous series, but even here he has extra wheels in All Engines Go, so I don't know what that means. My understanding is there was a comment by the creator that they were going to turn Edward back to this configuration, but as far as I'm aware, that hasn't happened. So yeah, we do have Edward, I think, looking here like he should, but in the show he looks weird, which then is odd because these toys generally have been very, very faithful to how the engines do look in the All Engines Go show. So it's interesting that Edward, they have not followed through with that. Classic Mattel. Again, we've got no printing on the wheels. We've just got the plain blue. Otherwise, we've got the Edward details here on the side. And we've got the little cab cut out on the back. So that looks pretty much the same as what we've seen on several of the other engines now. Coming to the tender, again, this is essentially the same tender design, just recycled to have the different painting and different colors on it. Nothing new here. It is all plastic. It has buffers on both sides, but neither of them are painted. Couple them together. Again, a good looking Edward model. Again, I do quite like these push-alongs. I think they do relatively faithfully represent what it looks like in the show, but also are quite fun and very well detailed. But it is just disappointing to see that we haven't got the detail on the front. And while I prefer this look in terms of wheel arrangement from my personal interests because of how I grew up with the show, it is perhaps a little bit disappointing that it doesn't reflect his current wheelbases in the show as he actually appears, which is a bit of a funny twist of fate, I suppose. We'll grab out a couple of other engines for a comparison, and otherwise we can wrap this one up, I think. A couple of other engines to do comparisons with. First one I want to do is Gordon, and I wasn't confident to say this until I got them out, but you can see when we look at them that they've actually got the cab is essentially the same design that's been reused. So it's not the same mold as far as I can tell, because this one has got the integrated splashes in it. But in terms of the design, you can see that they're exactly the same in the way the windows are proportioned. They've both got that cutout, and they've both got that same little whistle. So there's definitely some reuse of the same design elements there, even though the actual mold itself is slightly different. It also appears like perhaps, you know, again, I want to say, oh, they've reused the boiler, but they haven't, because Gordon's has got that little extra bit for his firebox, whereas Edwards has that square bit. So again, it's weird. They put a lot of effort into creating the details of these, and then they buggered it up in terms of the wheel arrangement. There you go, we can take a look. That's how he looks next to Gordon. And again, I think the fault, perhaps, if there is one of these toys, is the face sizing. The face sizing should be much bigger for these engines than it is. Like this is much more, again, proportioned as it would look in the classic series and not how it appears in All Engines Go. And then you can see again here, it is exactly the same tender, just with different printing on it. So that's the Gordon comparison out of the way. Again, we do a little comparison with Thomas. It's what we expect. Ironically enough, the more other versions of this Thomas that I see, and particularly that's going to become clear when we look at the Lionel Thomas in a later video. Come on, the camera doesn't want to focus on it. This is, I think, not as good a Thomas to represent how he looks in the show, proportion-wise, than some of the other toys are. And then also we've got Diesel here, so... You can see here that, yeah, Edward is another interesting character. I mean, it shows, I think, some awareness from Mattel, and I've talked about some previous videos as well. They seem to know that there's a lot of people who do not associate All Engines Go with the Thomas brand, and that there's a lot of legacy memory, even though, you know, Edward has essentially been binned from the show for several years now, given what happened with Big World, Big Adventures. There's still a lot of appetite for these legacy characters, and Mattel seems to be, on the one hand, aware of that to some extent because they produce toys of them, and then not aware of them because they don't actually give them roles in the show, or they don't, you know, greenlight more toys to be produced of them in other areas, or they do things like weirdly kind of half cancel the Thomas Wooden Railway line, which did have these legacy characters represented in it. So once again, who knows what Mattel is doing? I don't think they know what they're doing, which is so classic. But if you are collecting these lines or you are an Edward fan, this is definitely one you want to try and pick up. I paid about 27 Australian dollars for this, and because I bought it from Amazon as an Amazon Prime member, I paid no shipping. That is about double the price that it should cost if I bought it in a store, but I just have not seen the Edward wave anywhere. And that's equally likely for people who I've seen commenting saying, you're going to review Salty, you're going to review the Troublesome Truck? Yes, I'm going to review all of the versions of characters that I can find in the All Engines Go push along range when I can find them, but unfortunately they have been very difficult to get in Australia, and because of the way they're packed, they're quite difficult to buy online because a lot of companies that do sell them just sell a random assortment, so you can either get a random small engine or a random large engine, so it's very difficult to order them to Australia unless you want to pay, you know, double, triple, quadruple the price to have it shipped in from overseas. So that's the update on that. I'm really hoping that we get more of these. I think they're a great toy line. I've seen the duck has recently in the last couple of days been seen in the wild, so I'm hoping that he will come to Australia because that's one I really do want to collect. But otherwise, that's all I've got time for in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you this helps you decide whether you want to add All Engines Go push along metal engine Edward into your collection. That's all we've got time for. This is Extreme Trains.